Kia ora and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby pod. Plenty of good rugby to talk this week, including two massive clashes. The top four teams up against each other. We're going to see what the table is going to start looking like towards the end of the season. Once we've seen the Chiefs play the Crusaders and the Hurricanes play the Brumbies. So plenty to get into there. Plus we've got a special guest in once again this week to chat a bit of boxing, if you'd believe, plus a little bit of rugby along the way. James Parsons with us, of course, as ever. But Sam Tuitupou, former All Black, former Blues player, and now boxer in that fight for life. This Thursday, a charitable boxing fight for our viewers around the world. Sam, how did you end up in this, fighting to help people at I Am Hope for mental health?
To be honest, obviously I'm part of the WhatsApp group of the Blues and it sort of popped up and that, and Ali sort of messaged the boys and said, oh, listen, there's an opportunity for someone to fight one of the league boys. So I sort of seen it and I left it for about, 4 or 5 days, and no one had sort of responded to the message. So, and then obviously Bradley Mika said, oh, what about Sammy? Sammy be keen. So anyway, I sort of just messaged back, said, no, I'm keen. If, I'm keen if they want me to come down. So anyway, I messaged Ali and I said, if they're keen, to pay me from the UK, then I'll definitely put me down. So, you don't get the flight allowance like you normally do during the rugby and all that. So now that you're retired, you just got to make the most of any opportunity to get home. So yeah.
The boys aren't like, I'll fight. The boys are like, nah, you're an A.
Oh, no, exactly. And, and obviously it's for a good cause. And, I always love watching it every year. And I just thought this time was like, I'm out of rugby and I've got nothing else to sort of worry about. Why not? So yeah.
Yeah, you're up against Roy Asotasi, former rugby league player, big prop, one of the greats probably to play the game. Probably a good 20 kg heavier than you though.
Oh, he's Roy's he's slimmed down these days. He's looking fit as well. So they say that the league forwards are stronger boys than the rugby, so it's a good way to test to make sure.
Find out.
Yeah, exactly. To
I noticed none of the rugby forwards took the fight on, so
yeah,
probably says a little bit. But how's the training been? Is it different to what you've been?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And it was actually quite lucky because sort of came Christmas time, and I thought, you know what, when it comes New Year's, I'll start a good routine, and sort of get back into training, because obviously it has been quite difficult, where you've come from from years of having a schedule, training hard, and you've got something to look forward to, playing on a weekend and that. But now it's sort of like training, but there's nothing to train for. So when this opportunity came up, I thought, and it's really helped me sort of get back into training as well. Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. But the thing about boxing is that, everyone just thinks that you just throw punches and, and it works. But actually there's more to it. It's an art, of obviously all the movements, your hip movements, get all your power from your hips and all that, your legs. So, just learning that over the last couple of 7-8 weeks and that has been really enjoyable. And, we'll just see how it is. If I go well this Thursday, then, maybe there might be something for next year as well.
What's the game plan here? You're to the body, you're going to the head?
Obviously there's been a lot of talk, but, I'm just going to go full on. Obviously Roy's a lot fitter. So, for me, I've just got to knock him out early, to be honest.
Are you guys in headgear or no headgear?
Well, I'll be wearing my rugby headgear. I don't know if you're allowed to, but, that's a trademark of mine, so why not,
Fair enough, eh? You put that into some dark places along the way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, for rugby, once I've put that headgear on, that means I'm down, it means business. And every time I've had it on, I've always felt that, nothing can stop me. So once I put that on Thursday, Roy, you better watch out.
Well, if it's anything like the tackling, I'm sure you're going to go very well.
You ran the other way from that WhatsApp group, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I bet Roy would make light work of me, I can assure you.
Yeah, he could run the ball up.
Yeah. To be honest, the first, when the group came out, when the thing came out, it was Russell Packer. Obviously, he's an even bigger boy. Yeah. And so when I took it on, I thought, you know what, he's a big boy. I sort of run him around and all that. Then when they sent through the contract, I looked at it and it had Roy's name. And I said, is this the right contract? Because it's got Roy's name on it. He said, no, you're fighting Roy now. So then obviously game plan's gone out the window because obviously I knew he was into CrossFit. And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to have to run twice as long now. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's,
How many rounds is it?
It's only 3 rounds. Oh, yeah. I mean, 2 minutes.
But it feels quite long in there.
Yeah.
I remember any sort of pre-season when we did boxing, man, 10 minutes felt a long time.
Yeah.
Especially with my boxing technique.
Well, you see it every single time when you watch, you got guys who are really fit, but then they go full on for
Blow
the
out.
30 seconds, and then they're literally buggered for the rest of the round. And so I'm like, oh, do I sort of hold back a bit, or do I just go hard out? So I don't know. We'll see Thursday night when
Adrenaline
it comes.
will take over.
You get a charge out of the corner like Mike Tyson. Like just run at the bloke. Just get in the first shot.
Well, I've always said, you're better off getting one in before they get one in. So,
One of the things I was thinking when I saw that matchup was like, you're not the biggest bloke, especially for a modern professional midfield back. Like some of these blokes, like you think about the 12s that have come through the All Blacks, like Ma'a Nonu and Sonny Bill Williams. These guys are monsters, and you're a little bit smaller, but you created a legacy of packing a punch. Oof. Like he got very excited when we mentioned that you could come on, because you have that legacy. We were talking about Rupeni Thautau and Butha last week about how he only played 14 games for the Blues, but his legacy is off the charts. And the same, I mean, you played a few more, 38, but you're a very memorable cat for the way that you approached your tackling and the way you ran up. Like, how did you, this is the longest question in the world, how did you end up with that as your strong point? How did that happen?
Well, I guess it's obviously, it helps a lot when you've got four other brothers, and when you're playing on the front lawn of the house and they're always running over the top of you, you're like, but these are my brothers who are a few years older than me, so then when you're sort of playing against guys your age, it becomes a bit easier. But I've always found that I've always been the smallest out of, all my mates and that, and obviously playing against other teams, and that, I've always felt that, being the smallest, I've actually, everyone sort of targets you, so... I really enjoyed tackling from a young age, growing up with the brothers and that, and, them being a lot older and bullying me all the time. I think I sort of learned quite early on that, I had to sort of either get, learn to mix with the big boys or I'm going to be the one that's being run over all the time. So.
What was so special, I suppose, looking at the Blues in particular? It's my common angle on the show. But 2003, was there something different about it, or you just got on a hot run?
I think we just got on a hot run, to be honest. I mean, if you look at, back then, we knew that the boys are talented, but looking at now, reflecting back on the time, I can't actually believe I was actually part of that team, and especially that was my first year of Super Rugby as well. We had good players in front of me, but for some reason I just had a good pre-season, and then sort of just kicked on. Played the first warm game, and then I was lucky enough just to get the start, and then just didn't look back from there. We had guys like Jason Schumacher, and he was the year above me, but he was a good player as well. He was captain for the Tanifas, and he was part of the Super Rugby the year before me. So, I had other guys, in front of me that I thought that, I would never get a chance, but I was lucky enough when I did get it. I just made the most of it.
You had a few old heads too. At least Edson was still floating around then, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. And you had Carlos inside you.
Yeah.
You had a few people to lean on.
And I think, having those guys in around me as well, I think that sort of gave me the confidence to be able to do what I enjoy doing. But at the same time, I think I had to earn that respect from the boys as well. And I had the likes of Ronnie Clark around, who was able to, who really took us in, especially the young guys, took us in and really made us feel like, part of the team. Because obviously back then, being the younger boys and that, you always got you always had to wash all the boots in there on the team and always cast it out to the side. But he really took us on and really helped us as well. And I think if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have had the opportunity. But
do you see what he did and think that's what I need to do too?
Yeah, and I think the culture now of the Blues and that, like the younger guys coming through, it just shows that when you look after them and you sort of give them that sort of that care and love that they need, they just come through and they blossom as well. So.
And that's one of the things you're doing now as a player agent. Was that something you wanted to step into when you finished your career? You thought, this is a hole that I need to fill? Yeah,
no. Coaching was always the transition for me. So with the Sharks and that I was playing for at the time, my transition was I was always going to come back, and so they sort of let me go for a couple of years. We had an agreement where I'll go to Coventry as a player coach, and then I'll come back to the Sharks and that. But then after a couple of years, and obviously doing a lot of work with the PRPW, the Pacific Player Rugby Welfare, and that, agents was always a topic that always came up for a lot of the boys, and I guess it was just a leap of faith, to be honest, because, you know, as a coach and that, you want to sort of help boys develop and see them develop and kick on and that. And I just thought, you know, maybe being an agent is exactly the same, but helping more the players off the field, you know, because once you look after, you know, once boys have got things looked after off the field and that, it just makes their job a lot easier on the field, and then it just helps them to be able to progress, and especially being on their side of the world, where I think a lot of the help is needed off the field for not the players, but more the families, like the wife and the kids, because I think it's more the wives and the kids in that, if they're not settled, then the players in that feel that, you know, they feel the sort of pressure in that, and then, you know, they're either going to not perform well, or they'll just end up just packing up and coming back.
I think agents are massive. Yeah, I think of myself and my journey, they almost become part of your family, or at least your immediate family, and they are a massive trusted resource for I think your parents and your wife, kids particularly. Like, I think every player, if they've got a good relationship and the agent's aligned to their goals, it sets them up to actually achieve what they want to achieve. But more importantly, if they've got their stuff sorted off field, normally it transforms into the field of playing really well, because they're decluttered. So I always say to young players coming through, it's one of the most important relationships to get right, and making sure that you make them aware of what you want to achieve, so that they're working on the basis of getting you to the place you want to go.
In 2007, was it, that you arrived over there, Worcester? Was that one of the things you noticed immediately, was that you needed somebody to help you settle in?
Yeah, and I guess, you know, obviously the agents here, like in New Zealand, you know, I had one of the best as well. And my time here in New Zealand, it was awesome. But then as soon as I went overseas, you know, it was almost like you hand over the responsibility to the agents that they have over there. And I didn't feel comfortable. Well, you know, he was there to welcome me in, you know, get everything signed, but then you wouldn't see him until the next time the contract's ready to negotiate. So, and I felt I didn't have that support as well, you know, especially being overseas. A few times I sort of had a couple of tax bills that sort of turned up unexpectedly, you know, and that sort of took, you know, a big chunk out of my finances as well. But also, you know, just little things with the family as well, you know. Obviously, that was the main reason why I left New Zealand, was my personal reasons, and that sort of broke down before I went over. So obviously it was tough going over at the beginning. Mum ended up coming over to help me look after the kids. And then after about a year and a half, Mum ended up coming back with the kids. So then I ended up there by myself, finishing off you know, another 2 years on my contract. And then sort of that finished up, and then I was on my way back home, getting ready to sort of negotiate, come back to the Blues, and then I sort of had an offer come through for Munster. I rang Mum, and Mum was like, you know, since you're on that side of the world, you know, just sort of, you know, might as well take the 1 year and then see what happens after that. So I went over and got engaged to my partner, my wife now, and then ended up back in the UK again. So then, and obviously that's where I've ended up now. So, but in saying that, you know, if I had the right sort of advice from the agents and that I have over there, then, you know, things could have been a lot different. Things could have been a lot smoother. But yeah, I mean, that's obviously one of the main reasons why I've decided to become an agent, was to sort of help that transition and give the boys the right advice as well.
Yeah, that family backing, like your mum heading over, if the people don't have that when they get there, you know, you're so used to having, especially in Polynesian families, such a wide base, right?
Well, and you find that with a lot of the boys now, you know, especially the younger guys who end up going over there thinking they're going to come back, and then they obviously, you know, in my situation where they you know, they get a partner or wife and they have kids and they end up staying there, they don't have that support what they're used to back home. So, you know, they ending up relying on a lot of the other boys, you know. So most of the times during Christmas and that, you know, we have invite a lot of the rugby league families and that on Christmas Day, but we normally have it at the Sail Sharks Rugby Club, you know, and we have about 100 people that normally turn up, and then we sort of cook a pig on the spit and that, and the families turn up, and, you know, it's a really good day. It just makes us feel like we're back at home, you know, where some guys don't have that sort of luxury of having that sport around them, and they're just at home by themselves with their family having Christmas where they're not used to it. So yeah.
Work ethic has always been the cornerstone of your success. And I suppose for you, is there any truth to the rumour of league on Sundays and continuing to work at the dock whilst being a Super Rugby player?
Yeah, you probably can't do it now. But yeah, I mean, I used to go to church on Sundays and we used to drive past, because obviously I grew up playing rugby league. I actually played for the Canberra Raiders, actually with Shone Famuina.
Oh, really?
I had a pre-season game. Well, literally, I was actually working at the docks and I came home in the morning and I got a phone call. And it was from one of the Kiwi boys and said, oh, listen, Mal Meninga's after your number. Can I pass it on? And I said, Mal Meninga. And he said, yeah, they're coming in next week to play the Warriors. And it was a pre-season game and I said, oh yeah, pass it on if you want. So anyway, the following week came and then got a phone call. It was Mal Meninga and he said, listen, Sammy, I want you to, we're keen on you having a run for us. Would you be interested? And I said, oh, when is it? And he said, oh, it's today. And I said, oh, yeah, awesome, I'll be keen. So anyway, I hung up and then I told my brothers and I said, listen, Mal Meninga's on the way. And they were like, shut up. And they're like, they didn't even believe me. So anyway, went down to the hotel and that. And Mal Meninga met me at North Shore at Pounamu where the boys were staying and that. And yeah, so introduced me. It was funny because their preparation is like so... Like they just sort of just individual, just like they just sleep all day, just get up, have breakfast on their own and that, and just leave it to it. And so, I was just hanging around there for the day and, the likes of Laurie Daly, Ricky Stewart, all these guys that you've been watching TV, watching on TV playing and that. And so anyway, jump on the bus and that, head down to, the game was at Ponsonby Rugby Club, playing against the New Zealand Warriors. So I ended up playing. So when I play, I normally play hooker. So I play hooker when I play rugby league. So anyway, first 10 minutes, one of the boys got injured, and so I got on at fullback. So I played that, jumped in at hooker as well. So I really enjoyed that. And the funny thing is that afterwards, I said to the kit man, I said, oh, can I have the jersey? And he goes, yeah. So anyway, I took it off. I gave it to my brother, and then signing autographs and that. And then as I'm walking into the changing room, the security stops me and goes, no, players only. And I said, no, I'm part of the player. And he's like, no, like this. And I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, Mal Meninga was walking past and I said, Mal, security won't let me in. And he goes, no, he's one of us. So anyway, I walked past and I gave the guy a look at him. So anyway, yeah. So then a couple of weeks later, they called me back and they offered me a 3-year contract to move to Canberra Raiders.
Wow.
And and sign a 3-year deal. So I told Mum and Dad and that, and they were like, well, nah, you're too young to go by yourself. So
how old were you at this point?
I was 19.
19, so this is a few years before you made the Blues.
Yeah. And so I just carried on. So I carried on playing rugby. And then so you just ended up making all the teams, and so yeah.
The story could have been way different. Yeah, you've been fighting your teammate, Roy.
Yeah.
Mal Meninga, like what a phone call to get. You got a phone call from one of the all-time greats.
I couldn't believe it as well.
Yeah.
But even my brothers and that couldn't believe it and that, and but yeah, there stays sort of stories that stick with you. No, I haven't really, I don't really tell anyone, but yeah.
And then, as Jipper was referring to, you signed with the Blues, but you've still got another job on the side.
Yeah, well, I signed up. I used to go to university with my sister and my brothers, and they obviously just got bored one day and went down to the cafe, everywhere the students in there, and there was like job applications and all that. So I filled one in and there, and ended up getting a job down at the docks. And then just started working nights down at the docks and there, and then obviously I'd work to about. We'd start at about 10 o'clock, and we'll finish sometimes if we finished early. Then we'll finish about sort of 5, and then I'd go home, have a sleep, and then go back to trainings in the mornings and that. But that's only because I really enjoyed working with all my cousins and that. And it's just one of those things when you've brought up all your cousins that you just enjoy being with them. And I got the same sort of buzz of training as well with the boys. Like you had that energy to train even when you're tired. So. And when you're young, you sort of don't really think about it, And I guess it was just one of those things.
When did you sleep?
Well, I'm quite lucky, People used to call me the mork pork because I don't really like to sleep, I probably have 3 or 4 hours of sleep and then just get up, good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was that. Mm-hmm. And then why did you quit the docks?
I quit the docks because there was one night, so we used to be the latches of do the containers and that. and the big chains, and the big crane comes over, and you latch the chains onto the corners of the containers. And I was on, it was the top, it was the first ones and all that, and as I was at the top, the wave hit the ship, and it rocked the ship. And I lost my balance, and I fell overboard and fell into the water. And then I just thought from that time, I was like, oh, you know what, if I injure myself, I won't be able to play rugby. How am I going to explain to the coaches that I've hurt myself? So then from then I just called it quits and then just carried on playing the rugby.
That's just a hot cold bath, man. You're off doing your recovery.
No, exactly, yeah.
But then when you were playing with the Blues, rugby league stuck around? It was still a thing you wanted to do?
Yeah, I always enjoyed playing rugby league, and I still preferred rugby league over rugby. And every Sunday you drive when we're driving past going to church, you can see all the crowd and it coming. So then obviously after church we're coming back, then I'd always stop in, and then because obviously Tuitupou's a small, well, back then it used to be a small town and that, and used to know everyone, so I used to just jump, park up at that and just speak to the coach, and then he goes, oh, you're jumping at half time. So I used to have a game of rugby league and there on a Sunday, and then and then head back to do the recovery back on the Monday for the Blues and there. So.
And it never got back to 10 or anyone?
Nah. Oh, there were a couple of times when I got injured, but then I had to sort of fake it and get injured on the Monday morning, and then obviously just had to.
Very good.
Always come up with a reason for an injury.
Yeah.
Any of our viewers who aren't from New Zealand, Tuitupou's West Auckland, and it's a pretty strong rugby league stronghold, and the Tuitupou Roosters are right on the motorway. So when it's big there, you drive past there.
That's right. Well, funny enough, even when I was playing the Blues and that, and then obviously I was playing for Ponsonby as well, when we had a week off and that, the Ponsonby always wanted me to play, for the first team. But I was like, but I felt real bad because, when I had a game, when I wasn't playing, and they expect you to come back, I felt bad because, you had players there that would be, did pre-season, played all the games, and then all of a sudden they've been dropped because one of the boys had come back from the Blues. So I used to argue with them, I used to say, well, I'm not going to play. So I used to go and play Presidents. Because obviously my brothers and they were playing there. And I used to go play with them and enjoy that run. But then obviously, I can remember this one game we were playing against Aotearoa, and obviously the players and they recognised who I was, and honestly, like coming back and playing as well, like you get the old shots and that, which I didn't mind, because I played in the village games and that, the island village games, the Tongan ones here, during when I was coming through MPC as well. So, you used to take all the hits and that, which I didn't mind because. You always get some guy trying to, make a mark and all that. But my brothers didn't hate it, so I say anyway, anyone that would always try and tackle me, then they'll be out scrapping them. And I was like, just take it easy, just enjoy the game, man. So I always enjoyed going back and playing for the Ponsonby Prezzies as well. EPs, they used to call it. So I used to go back and play for them. So I did. So at least the guy that played in the senior team didn't miss out.
You mentioned Ted. There's an old wives' tale going about that you may have downtrodden at some point.
It wouldn't be the first time, but yeah, it was probably the classic one, and there was a lot of people around as well. Obviously coming back from overseas, I had a break during the season, so I come back home, and normally when I do come back home, I go watch the boys train, and then obviously I got invited to lunch. And Ted happened to be there for lunch as well, so Ted was the last one sort of to get up to get his plate of food and that. And as he was sort of just putting the food on his plate, I sort of went up behind him and pulled his pants down as well. And the thing is, because he had all his food on his plate, was like, so he puts it down, he pulls up his pants, and he turns around and sees it's me, and he slaps me on the face. He goes, "Who bloody let you back in the country?"
He's standing there in his funny ways. Wife runs from Ted. Amazing. And then what happens there? He turns around to the team and goes, "They'll not be laughing."
I tell you what, Ted wouldn't be the first one as well. So there were plenty of other coaches out there that had the same sort of thing.
That became your thing.
Yeah.
Would you have done it if you were playing for him?
Oh, mate, yeah, of course I would.
That was the best of the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Please get in touch with us. Send us an email at aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. Comment in the YouTube section. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll catch you again next week. Mā te wā.